thank you to all the volunteers. Run Like Clockwork has been great. Thank you to all the programmers, as always. It's been an amazing lineup of films. And thank you to the wait staff here at the Alamo Draft House for working as insanely hard as they have the entire time they've been here. Please tip them well. I am honored to be introducing the secret screening today. And I am very, very privileged to be bringing some special guests for the film today. For those of you who are not yet aware of what we're seeing, which I hope is the majority of you, we are screening Cloud Atlas. It is not often that you can use the word for people who work in the giant commercial studio space, artists. And I think that the Wachowskis, over the course of their career, have proven that they are pushing modern commercial filmmaking towards a more experimental place. You know, when I take my kid to see something like Speed Racer, and he understands the visual language in a way my parents never will, I think that's something new and exciting that's happening. I have seen Cloud Atlas now once. I'm thrilled to be seeing it with you again because I feel like I've just barely begun to dig into the movie. But to introduce the film for you, I am very, very pleased to introduce Lana and Andy Wachowski.
Hi. Nice to meet you. I'm Andy Wachowski. This is my sister Lana Wachowski, formerly the Wachowski brothers, now Wachowski Starship.
This feels like the UN of movie-going. We've been very lucky to be allowed to make some pretty experimental films in our career. This could be the most experimental. It was not easy to get made. I don't know if you've heard of the long saga, but it was a long saga.
We'd like to tell it to you now. It's a 2-hour story, so everybody sit tight.
But we kept trying because we believed, you know, there are people like us out there who want to see things that are different, who want to see movies like they screen here at this astonishing film festival. We are very, very, very grateful to be invited to. And yeah.
And thanks to Drew for coming out and introducing us and stuff.
And we were hoping that there were people like us, people like you, who like movies different, who expect more out of movies, who like their movies a little queer. Thank you, and hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you afterwards.
We will be doing a Q&A after the movie, so please stay in your seats. And one last thing, just want to welcome you to the Sony 4K Theater and thank Sony Digital Cinema 4K for making today's screening and the interlock to the other theater possible. Have a great time, guys. We'll see you after. The first time I felt like I had a million questions, and you had the rare opportunity today to actually ask them of, once again, Lana and Andy Wachowski.
Everybody's still here. No walkouts. All right.
The second time through, I feel like one of the things that I was looking at more this time were the connections and the small ways things add up. There are big things that you see the first time through, obviously reading Sexsmith's letters or Ewing's journal. But it's remarkable how all of it throughout the entire thing, there are echoes of style, there are echoes of just things that happen between characters and moments. In building this, I know that you said that in the editing room there were things that you had to restructure, but it all seems to be such a carefully built jigsaw puzzle. Can you talk just a little bit first about the process of breaking the book down, which had such an unusual structure to begin with, and then rebuilding it into what we finally see here?
Yes. We can. We think we can.
Well, it started when, we read the book, and there were things about the book that were immediately we got very excited about. Like, I loved in the book when the chapter ended in the open line that was unfinished, an unfinished sentence, and that had a provocative quality to it that made both of us interested in trying to duplicate that in a film, in a structure in a film. Could you duplicate that feeling? And when we started, we thought, the first thing, we made a pact that it might be impossible, and that we were going to still love each other, even though it might fail in miserable kind of agony.
With Tom Tickfer, the third, who can't be here, he was,
Yes. He's actually the brains of this outfit.
That's right.
We were saying we account for about 42% of the directorial department.
I mean, one of the things about the book is when you start breaking the book down, and I guess originally David Mitchell, he wrote each story straight through and just, took an axe and cut the stories in half, basically, and then created.
He did it in 20 minutes. I'm not kidding. He told me that, I almost wanted to hit him in the head.
So he, then he created the palindrome structure novel. But when you start breaking down each story, you see all these little details that little motifs that he's putting in each of the different stories. Like the word George or Georgie shows up in each of the stories in the novel, and we tried to keep that in the film, and so it just became a question of how many connections can we possibly make in this thing to really feel the idea of eternal recurrence. And it was amazing how many things would match up from story to story.
The big breakthroughs were when we started laying out, so we wrote all of our favorite scenes, and we put all of our favorite scenes in little cards, and we laid them out in like rows, and it was this crazy Zen garden that was like we would just stare at. Just like stare and stare. And then you would see some scene here was a scene that was resonant over here. Like you could start the scene here, and the scene was essentially the same, but you could finish it over here. And then as soon as we began to feel that you could tell in kind of like a skipping stone across the water, you could have a narrative structure that skipped pieces and then finished in other stories, that became like, oh, we could see that you could fit it into a full film.
Yeah, each of the cards were almost like molecules, and you'd fit them together, and we'd all go, whoa, yeah, whoa, that's good. And then you just sit and you'd stare at it.
Tridectochloroline is right there.
I find the casting in the movie remarkable because you really you ask everybody to step outside their comfort zones at some point in the film. Like, nobody gets to just play the things they're comfortable with. And what did Hugh Grant do to you guys to end up playing every awful human being throughout every?
He asked that same question, actually.
He was, well, we think Hugh Grant is really a cool actor, and we think that he has never offered any interesting parts. And our casting director, I think, is one of the great casting directors in the business, Laura Kennedy.
We gave her a producing credit as well, because she did such an amazing work.
She's like, Hugh Grant is so good, you just have to send him the script. Just send it to him, just send it. And we're like, well, we only have these horrible, despicable people to play. What will he say? Just send it, just send it. And so we sent it, and then he read it, and he sent back a letter, and he was like, okay, I'll meet with you. And Andy flew there, and because of like some crazy thing, he actually ended up flying at the last minute and had to catch this horrible plane to get there. And
Well, it was because there was Con was happening right at that moment, so there were a lot of connecting flights through the UK to Cannes, and so
we show up completely bedraggled, and Hugh Grant is like, okay, you must think I'm the worst, most horrible, shitty actor in the whole world, and you must hate my guts to offer me these parts, or you really think I'm talented. Which is it?
I said, listen, buddy, I just flew coach to meet you. Do you realize how horrible that is? I've become accustomed to a certain lifestyle. But he was impressed.
He loved the script. He said it was one of the best things he's read, and he's a really, really intelligent actor, and he started asking us all these questions. Well, why does that person do this? And why does that person do that? And we like explain these gigantic backstories, and he was like, And finally he said yes.
I think it's interesting that it's even the smaller roles, it's even supporting roles, and people who you may not register the first time through that you're seeing repeatedly. It's not just the movie stars you did that with. That process of developing the makeup and becoming comfortable where you really believed in each of these characters as they played them in the different times. Was that a long process? Was it something that came together quickly for you guys?
Well, that was when we started thinking about, there's this motif in the book that's about a birthmark, and it's repeated as if there's this transmigrating soul throughout time. And we thought it was a cool motif, but in some ways we thought like, well, this guy is the most, or this soul is the most unlucky soul in the world. They like keep coming back. It's like Job. They have this like horrible, they're like, they have to save the world over and over and over. And then we started talking about the desire to make it one narrative instead of sort of more broken 6 narratives. And then when we hit on the idea of multiple actors playing multiple parts, something got very excited about what you're describing. That something happens in the movie where a star usually sits sort of prominent of the background. You look at like Tom Hanks, and it's like, Tom Hanks, you know, the movie's about Tom Hanks. And you bond with him as like a star, but there's a distance between you and the stars. And we had this, when we started discussing it, there was something that seemed very human and inviting about this idea of weaving stars into the background. And we would listen in the screenings and hear people go, is that Holly? Is that Holly? I think that's Holly Berry. And then you'd hear like, or Tom, that's Hugh Grant. I know that's Hugh Grant. And then as soon as they say this, what you realize is the audience is experiencing a film in a way they never have, and they're experiencing those actors in a way they never have, which for us had this really very attractive warmth to it, this really interesting humanity to the performances. And then it became not a gimmick in our brain. It became something that was a part of the fabric of David Mitchell's novel.
One of the, I think, most amazing things about the film is Tom's music. The Cloud Atlas Sextet is remarkable. And it was an opportunity that you seemed very excited about when we talked in Toronto, the idea that you got to direct with it as something you already had, as a piece of music that you could play for the actors and for yourselves. And can you talk about what that did for you in the process?
Well, it was, it was huge. It was like this enormous breakthrough. You make a movie and you shoot it and you get to post and you cut your movie, and then you end up putting this. You take music from other movies and you temp your movie with it, and it always has this kind of morbid, like you've gone to the grave and like dug up some body parts and attached them to your movie, and like you're grave robbing somehow. And Tom said, well, I do not do it like this. Why would you do this? You make your music before, and so it was like this incredible revelation to us.
Like we're like Flatlander. Like the world is flat.
The Flat Earth Society.
Like the Flat Earth Society. We're like, no, you
What are you doing?
You'll fall off the edge.
What are you, crazy? And so, he had the whole score composed, and, there were themes, and, the Cloud Atlas Sextet was something that he came up early on, and that was the first piece of music that he played for us, and we're like, oh my God, this is really good. Where did you get, what movie is this from? I don't know, I just wrote it. So yeah,
We'll never
go back. We're round earthers now.
So obviously, I'd like to throw this out to you guys to ask some questions. I know, Aaron, you had said you had a first question for us.
Yeah, I kind of want to go further down the rabbit hole with the adaptation. I read the book years ago. I'm a big fan, and I think anytime a book is adapted for film, it's an unlike medium. There's going to be some certain changes that have to be made, just because. But the Russian nesting doll structure of the book compared to the more tapestry, overlapping, cross-cutting nature of the film. Was there anything from the book that you had hoped to keep in, but it just did not work with the way that you wanted to tell the story?
Yeah, well, I mean, the script was originally, like 275 pages. It was insane. We're like, this is the very reason you make the movie. Each scene was like that when we were negotiating to, cut pages out of the script. And so there's tons of stuff that, the book is so rich that we had a lot of dead babies in the end. But, it's like you talk about...
Hey, dead baby! This might be the right crowd.
But like the experience of reading the book and the experience of watching the movie in our heads is sort of similar. It's like when you read the book, you're able to set the book down and you walk away from it and you're like, oh, you go to sleep, or you wake up the next day, or maybe you don't even touch the book for another couple of days. And as you get your way through each story, you've wormed your way, your head starts to make connections. You become the editor, and so you're as a reader, you're creating the tapestry that is the basic structure of the film. It's more of a mosaic. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, we were very proud when David Mitchell said, "You guys made connections that I didn't even see."
Now, you talked also about how the first time you looked at an edit, you found places where you almost needed to reset tone. You needed palette cleansers. And I don't notice them. Like, as I watch the movie, it all really feels like it's of a piece. Is there any example that you can give us for a moment where you felt like maybe two things next to each other didn't work the right way and you needed to just create that space to make sure that they did?
Yeah, well, no movie has ever tried to juxtapose tone and genre, ever, as much as we did in this movie. And we were sort of innocent about it. We were kind of like, well, the book did it. It seemed fun. It seemed great. And it was like scientists, like, experimenting with acids and bases. We're like, hey, this is fun. It's cool. Yeah, we watched the first version, and there were all these Cavendish scenes, because the Cavendish sequence was quite spread out near the end. And they were put against all these really intense moments with Somni and Zachary, and it completely undid them. I mean, imagine, cutting up Alec Guinness black comedy against The Godfather, like just intercut them in your mind, and you'd see that The Godfather would then seem kind of silly, and the black comedy wouldn't be funny anymore. It would seem weirdly serious. Tone is... Nobody intercuts tone. I think this movie is a first in that way, that we juxtaposed such radical tone. And what we found was that you had to go back in the structure and create little spaces or transitions for the tone to move, particularly from Cavendish to Somni or Zachary. I mean, they were the hardest to cut next to each other.
Yes, there in the end.
Yeah, talking about the actors being able to play roles that they've never had the opportunity to play, I'd like to know who the biggest kid was in regards to the enthusiasm of waking up every morning, getting in the makeup chair, showing up on set ready to play.
They were all so into it, and their courage is the reason this movie existed. I mean, we really asked actors to do something that no movie has really ever asked them to do. But it was led by Tom Hanks. You know, if he wasn't as enthusiastic as he was, and he was there from the very beginning. I mean, I don't know, we had this incredible meeting where we walked in, and he had been reading Moby Dick, which is one of my favorite books, and we talked about that, and he had 2001 on his wall, and that's one of our touchstone films. And I was like, oh, these are all auguries. It's like, it's meant to be. And at the end of the meeting, and it was really lovely, he was so excited. He says, he's like, okay, I'm in. When do we start? When do we start shooting? Where are we going first? And we were like, we've been in a lot of actor meetings, and they never say, yes, let's start shooting. I mean, they
It's
all
always,
say,
okay, this is a very good meeting. This is a great meeting. It's very nice to meet you. My people will get in touch with your people. But yeah,
and he said, yeah, when do we start? And the three of us, Tom, Andy, and we like, are you kidding? Is this a trick? Is this a joke? And we're kind of like flummoxed, and he's like, no, I want to do it. I'm in. It sounds super great, super exciting. I'm into it.
we'll get back to you.
And then we, he came, and most of the actors traveled, and the financing of this film was constantly falling apart and putting together. I mean, it was like a scene in Playtime where everything is falling apart, even while everybody comes in. We're like, okay, we think we're gonna start. Everybody try to come down, show up, and
I think some people may not realize that this is an independent production, that this is not a studio film.
Yeah.
This is something you guys put together really through act of will, basically.
Yeah, the producers did an outstanding job, digging through couches for loose change all over the world. But yeah, just to finish the question, like on the first few days when actors would come in and they'd start getting dressed and start getting in costume, people would walk around at Babelsberg where we shot it, and they would not recognize each other, and that created this crackling excitement amongst everybody. So I think everybody at that moment was ready to jump in, and the moment where Holly has her Jocasta makeup on and sees Hugh Grant as the Kona chief cannibal.
And they just walk right past each other, and they're kind of like
somebody.
eyeing
I know.
each other like,
You're somebody.
I think
You're
you're
somebody on this movie.
And Tom told that amazing story about Hallie's reaction to the Jocasta outfit the first time. Can you talk about her response to that?
yeah, it was really beautiful. She, Tom had said, oh, this guy, she was really into the dresses, and she was trying everything on, and Tom's like, oh, this looks fantastic. Did you ever get to wear this kind of dress? And she's like, no, I've always loved this period, this period of cinema, but every time I've been allowed to participate in a film that's like this, I have to always play a slave or a servant. And so the movie, in a way, was accessing even the ideas of the film and this idea of transcending boundaries. And so even in Holly's playing of Jocasta, she herself transcended this boundary of Hollywood segregation. Like, Hollywood remains segregated even in its history. And so she was able to access a part of history that she was never able to access before.
There's some remarkable world building in the film. The suggestion of things that have happened in this world, whether it be New Soul or After the Fall, you hinted the history. You hinted things that have gone on. But to create a New Soul that is coherent and makes sense to you guys, how much design went into the surfaces of things and how things worked? Because I know as science fiction fans, that's part of the fun of doing a film like this.
Yeah, we were so angry at David because he doesn't have to work nearly as hard. We were like, oh yeah? Well, how do you put an egg in your pocket? Who wants to carry around a phone that's like an egg?
That's in the book, the orison, the thing the guy spins is actually, it's an egg.
Yeah, put that in your back pocket and
That's
sit
the
on that
basic
for
communicator device. Everybody in the future has horrible backaches and they have to go to chiropractor all the time. Yeah, it's It's tedious.
But we like it. I mean, that's part of the thing that we like. We like thinking of all of those realistic, we like them to feel, if you go back 100 years and you try to imagine an iPad, you know, it would be like magic. And yet it's tactile and it has a reality to it. And so we try to think, how do you portray that for now, for this time period? How do you portray something that feels something a little bit magical, but yet at the same time we like the tactile touchness. And we don't like it when technology is worse than our present technology. Like, I hate all of these sci-fi movies that have these like weird holograms that you can barely make out. You're like, how does anyone see anything in there? Like, my iPad is like way better than this.
Yes.
It was an awesome, beautiful movie.
Thank you.
The whole, I just want to get y'all's actual belief of day-to-day on occurrences and the whole idea, and technically, theoretically, can this be a glitch in the Matrix?
He's asking about the way eternal recurrence is used in the movie and whether that's a real belief or something that is metaphorical largely.
Well, somebody, we were just on this radio show. It was the first time we'd ever done anything like that. A similar question came up about what is our belief system, and our mom is, she was Catholic growing up and has now evolved to more of a spiritualist. She was a shaman for a little while, so she's out there seeking something. And our dad is this, a hardcore atheist, and we grew up and we'd have to go to church and do all this stuff, communion and all that. Why doesn't Dad have to go to church? And so, to some extent, I feel like we're trying to appeal to both of their senses in the movie. There's a line in the movie that Lana wrote based on this Jose Saramago line. That's the nature
of our immortal lives is in the consequence of our words and deeds that go on apportioning themselves throughout all time.
So like that as an idea of reincarnation is like a good sort of scientific way to imagine your own immortality.
Yeah, it's
Which we
tied
like.
in. If you want a Matrix reference, there's a beautiful quote that we had pinned up when we were writing the trilogy. That's from Schopenhauer. That's one of my favorite quotes, philosophical quotes. He says, the fundament upon which all our knowledge and learning rests is the inexplicable. And I like this idea. I like that there's always a quest or an unanswered question that's a part of our lives. And I try to, or we both in our fiction, we try to approach that unanswerability both in a secular way and in a spiritual way. We think that there's something interesting in that paradox in between them. So the movie has very secular relevancies to it. Like the idea of David Mitchell's book, he himself is wrestling with very concrete moral issues that are right here in our everyday. It's like our world will continue to become more vicious and predacity will continue to spread through our own individual choices. So we can choose as individuals to make the world a more predacious place or a more kind and a more caring place. At the same time, this idea of immortality is attractive to you as a storyteller. And it was attractive to David too, and we related to that. Interesting too. And we found there was something beautiful in the idea of an immortal love. Immortal love is something we write about a lot. And we thought this was a cool, in the breaking apart of time and the structure of our narrative, we were able to actually tell a happy ending of almost like an afterlife or a heaven in the Somni and Chang tragedy, that they get back together, but it's in their past. That was something that was attractive to us.
That does not answer your question. Next question.
Why I talked so long, I was sure I was answering something.
So we have time for one last one, guys, and then unfortunately we got to wrap it up.
Let's stay, sit, and occupy.
So yes, Alan.
So Hugo Weaving in The Matrix and in this film pretty much plays evil incarnate. What has he done to you?
Hugo also, yes. And I love that Hugo will go anywhere for you guys. The Nurse Noakes especially.
He's the best. We love him to death. He's our evil muse.
Yeah, he's one of the finest people we know in this business. He is absolutely a wonderful human being. I don't know why.
You wouldn't believe how sweet he is. You wouldn't believe it. He's the nicest, most generous, beautiful human. And we're always like, and now you're so evil. I don't know.
Maybe he's seeking us out.
Well, I want to thank you for coming, bringing this to Austin and sharing it with us. And I want to thank you again for making it. It's really a remarkable movie.
Thank you.